Hey everybody,
Hey guys.
welcome to another MerlinCast. It's been a little while. I've got Dan with Dan Reviews It. How you doing?
Hello. Good. Good. Thanks for having me as always.
Hey man, it's welcome to have you over. I do want to just briefly say your channel has kind of had like that recent upheaval because you were reviewing
Yes.
Roseanne a lot.
Roseanne episodes and seasons were really a huge part of my channel this year. The rebranding of Dan Reviews It included a lot of Roseanne stuff, and that sort of now went by the wayside.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, but hey, it brought a lot of people to my channel, and I haven't lost any subscribers since the upheaval. So that makes me happy. It makes me think people are waiting maybe to see what's coming next or what have you. And you will hopefully be a part of some
Oh
of that
yeah,
stuff.
yeah. I still try to come by, and for you guys that don't know, Dan's been on a couple videos before. We reviewed Sopranos a couple times. He was, I guess, the host, founder, Film Fanatics.
Yeah,
Uh,
you could say that.
yeah, he was with
Producer for sure.
producer for sure, editor for sure.
Yeah,
We did Film Fanatics with Justin
many years.
for many years, and he's still been keeping his channel going. He does movie reviews sometimes. Mostly, been focusing a lot on TV lately.
Yeah, because I found that the movies I was getting to were not, for the most part, up, right away.
Mhm.
If I did see it, like I saw the Thursday premiere of Deadpool 2, so I put that up right away. But for the most part, it's more been focusing on TV, and especially because I put that first Roseanne review up just kind of as a, hey, let's see if this takes, and hundreds of people watched it, and I got all these subscribers, and I thought, okay, well, let's keep that momentum going.
So,
So-
would you say that's the main focus of your channel is going to be more TV oriented? Still, you're still trying to figure that
I
out.
think what I'm gonna do is, yes, TV for sure, but I think on the movie front, I'm going to start doing more like themed, like older type things, both with and without you.
Mhm.
We actually already shot a Michael Keaton
Yes.
retrospective that's going to be going up soon, which is awesome.
I liked that.
That kind of thing. Like we'll pick an actor or an actress and kind of go over their whole filmography and sort of name the best maybe that we've seen from them. And then I want to. A friend of mine had sent me this Marvel in chronological order, not from release, but from time it takes place. And I've kind of
On
seen
the
that-
timeline.
The timeline, yeah. And I've seen that sort of on and off, over the years on the internet. But I'd like to certainly go back and see some of those older movies because a lot of them I haven't seen since the original
Iron Man.
release.
Yeah.
I've seen the first Iron Man several times, but like the first Thor, I haven't seen since it was in theaters.
Oh, okay.
The first Captain America, I haven't seen. And none of the TV shows. I never dove
Yeah,
into that.
I've been upset you haven't watched any of the
I know,
Netflix shows.
So like Jessica Jones is on the list, and Agents of Shield, and Luke Cage, and all that is on the list. So I want to kind of tackle that stuff, which is both movies and TV, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
And then some Disney stuff. I'm a huge Disney fan.
Mm-hmm.
I don't necessarily. I don't know. I'm a little back and forth on the company itself, but
Yeah.
they know how to market their movies and they know how to make a good product for the fans.
Without a doubt.
So I definitely want to delve into some of the really old Disney stuff as well for the channel.
Three Amigos. What was that? The
Three Amigos, I believe, was not Disney. I want to say that was maybe Universal.
was it Universal?
Great movie though.
Well, what was the?
Steve Martin Short, and Chevy Chase.
What am I trying to think? Wasn't there
Oh, the Three Caballeros.
Three Caballeros? Okay.
You're absolutely right. That is a very early Disney with Donald Duck.
Donald
That's
Duck.
from probably the 40s. I would say maybe 44. Yeah, that's one of the early ones.
Oh yeah. That's literally one of the first animated, right?
It really is. Yeah.
That's cool.
So I want to delve into some of that stuff. Yeah, I think that is how my channel needs to take shape. Because you've mentioned several times about, look, movie reviews are kind of a dime a dozen, especially with newer releases.
I think so.
And I found that with the views of my movies,
No, actually, even to give
so-
you some feedback, even for my channel, a couple of my subscribers have even told me, like, we don't really come to your channel for the new movie releases. We could go anywhere for that.
Right.
So it's
they
like
want to hear more about, the anime shows and more in-depth
niche things.
discussions. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm like, all right. So I still do them once in a while for fun, but
Yeah.
you're right. A lot of people are doing them, so I think maybe more of a bulky subject matter might be
Yeah.
good for you because a lot of content too.
And Roseanne was really something that helped me kind of realize that, like come to that realization that, because listen, not many people were doing Roseanne episode reviews. But
No.
apparently there was a huge, market for it.
Yeah.
So
With the remake.
So I definitely you want to focus on some of that stuff, and hopefully you'll be aboard for some of that as well.
Well, no, absolutely. In fact,
Yeah.
I have two requests though.
Yeah.
Well, just because this obviously shouldn't be a main thing, but you have such an awesome collection of stuff.
Yes, that's the other thing. And you mentioned this to me a few months ago when we started doing a couple things down in the basement with my new scenery.
That sounds wrong.
You're right. It does.
Things.
Doing some videos in my basement. That's even worse.
More specific. Oh no.
But no, when we were doing some podcasts down there, and you had mentioned, you should take a tour of the basement, and I had sort of forgotten that actually with sort of all the Roseanne stuff. But yeah, I would like to do that. I think people would be interested maybe in finding out some of the more rare things of the collection and unboxings and stuff like that.
Just because of what I've seen is popular on YouTube. Like if you order things in the mail all the time, like if you get like a special edition Blu-ray, director's cut of something, open it up, look at the features. People like those.
Love it.
You could do those, and literally maybe as a special or something, if you had another landmark, do a tour like of your stuff, and then maybe you could do videos focusing on like the albums or certain bands, or just because
cool.
literally, just speaking for me, I think that's pretty cool. Just from glancing at your collection,
Thank you.
It'd be cool.
Yeah.
You could even
I pride myself on my collection.
Like
I really do.
for instance, the Simpsons stuff. You could literally just take a video
all
where
the toys I have,
you look at all the toys and stuff,
promos,
and just talk about the Simpsons while you do it.
Mm-hmm.
Like this figurine reminds me of this
that's
or that.
true.
Just as an example.
So you said 2 requests, so that's request 1.
I know that was a bulky. No, that's a request that might actually help your channel.
Okay.
This other one would purely be for me.
Okay.
Would you ever review Home Improvement?
What's funny is I love a Tim Allen movie, but I never got into Home Improvement. Isn't that weird?
It's kind of a.
They're great.
I love him in his movies generally,
and
but
Wild Hogs and the Santa Claus and Galaxy Quest, obviously.
of course.
I'm trying to think of the other ones, but the Shaggy Dog remake. But I guess I would if people really enjoyed it, but I never got into Home Improvement. I would have to buy them. Those are ones that are not in my collection.
Well, yeah, I don't know. I think you might enjoy it if you went into it like with this new perspective.
Yeah,
but
maybe.
I grew up watching a lot of it, but I'll be honest, it's one of those shows where it's like I watched a lot of it as a kid, but I barely remember it. But it wasn't on for quite a while though.
It was on for I want to say maybe 8 years, 7-8 years.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
It had a successful-ish run.
Request 2 is do Home Improvement season reviews.
I know it's obviously a joke. You know what? I don't really want you. Okay, only review it if you really liked doing it.
Yeah.
But I would like you to check it out. Maybe watch a couple episodes of the first season to get a sense of how you feel about it. Because I don't know. I think I'd find that entertaining.
All right.
You could satisfy that one subscriber.
There you go.
Me.
The one Merlin subscriber.
I feel like you might have a few around here, but yeah. But anyway, this was a long promo for your channel. I did that strategically because I was like, we were going to kind of plug that at the end, but let's be honest, it's a long podcast. They'll have turned off by now, but maybe we'll have caught them.
Yeah.
But anyway, guys, let's move into the news a little bit, I guess. Yeah, we'll hide ourselves so we're not as conscious.
You're right.
I had the camera up there, but all right. I'm going to take the reins here because this is my podcast, right? I got 2 rants, okay, because we're like, all right, what's some general news stuff? Nothing really new for this channel, but okay. I saw Solo.
Okay.
You did not.
No.
But I haven't really talked about it on the channel yet. I wrote a little bit about it on my site. You guys can check out the blog if you want, but generally, okay, basically, Solo was a Star Wars movie that underperformed.
Yes.
And
it underperformed because it only made a little over 100 opening weekend.
Only. I'm like, and people are losing their minds because it didn't hit like the biggest numbers, ever. Like it's the lowest performing of any Star Wars movie, I guess.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, people are like, of course, saying, even I did, the end of Star Wars.
Yeah.
First of all, guys, it's Star Wars. It's not
never going to happen.
The biggest merchandise thing ever. Not going anywhere.
No.
But it's interesting why it may have underperformed. And there have been a lot of theories about it. And being you're not a big Star Wars fan or lover anyway, but you know a lot about movie releases and maybe a little bit about the Star Wars fandom lately.
Yeah.
What is your opinion on that?
I think there's two factors here. Number one is that the last Star Wars movie was not even 6 months ago.
True.
So right there you've got a problem, because with so many huge blockbusters coming out this summer, we've already seen a couple with Infinity War, Deadpool, and then right around the corner Incredibles and Jurassic. So you've got Solo smack dab in the middle of that.
Mm-hmm.
And they're all, quite honestly, going for the same audience. Deadpool maybe not as much, because obviously the others are all more family oriented.
Mm-hmm.
But Deadpool is still obviously in that action vein. Fanboys certainly will go see it. Comic book people will go see it.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously the other four tailor more to families. But so you've got the there's only so much money to go around for these movies. You know, when you take your family to a brand new released movie, let's say you, the spouse, your 2.5 kids, as they say, is the average American family. So, you're spending $40 or $50 on tickets alone. You spend another $30 at the concession.
Movies are expensive.
So, you're not plunking down $80 every week for a friggin' movie.
And even fans, a lot of people, like for Infinity War, Deadpool, they'll see that multiple times. They'll spend all their money on those.
I think there's people that look, Infinity War was a huge hit, obviously, and a lot of love for it. Yeah, I think there's a lot of people that would rather go see Infinity War a second time than Solo. And obviously, Star Wars diehards are going to see Solo. They'll see anything with Star Wars, but I think the average moviegoer that just watched Last Jedi 6 months ago is going to be like, enough with it right now.
Well,
so that's problem one.
Okay, problem one.
Problem two is, I don't think The Last Jedi was as loved as certain others in the canon. I know a lot of diehards that really didn't care for it. But you're one of them, absolutely. And you're not the only one, though. No,
it's very divisive.
So I think for a lot of people it was sort of like, okay, not only did we just have a Star Wars movie 6 months ago, but it wasn't that good. So, and obviously because it's a prequel, it's like, there's nobody from the casts of these old other movies,
to draw people in.
Right, So obviously the new, I guess it's a trilogy, right? The Last Jedi and all that's a trilogy,
yes.
Right? So with that, okay, yes, it's a whole new focus. You've got Rey and you've got all these other people, but guess what? You also have Carrie Fisher in it,
mm-hmm.
and Mark Hamill, kind of, and Harrison Ford in one of them. So it's like you draw in those people. Here it's like there's name recognition,
some,
but yes, I could completely see why. So that's from my perspective, not having seen the movie, but
that's okay though.
I could have said that 3 months ago. Here's why it's not going to perform.
Having seen the movie, I do kind of agree with you, and this is a discussion we could have without even talking about the movie's actual quality,
mm-hmm.
because oddly enough, it doesn't really factor in that much.
Okay.
And I that kind of,
it's a good movie, actually.
It's not bad.
Yeah.
It's not bad. I think it. I mean, just to keep it relatively spoiler-free and for your benefit if you ever watch it, I think it's probably pretty much what you expect. Fun adventure movie with no ramifications for anything else.
Right. Okay.
If it were not Star Wars, it'd just be a fun, kind of like a Guardians of the Galaxy-esque, smugglers, space pirates, but it's characters you know.
Yeah.
You learn some interesting things. There were good things about it, but I thought it was interesting because some people have been saying that Solo, as a reaction to the fans that were kind of boycotting because of Last Jedi, they're actually missing out on a movie that might appeal more to them because it's giving them exactly what they want.
Okay, that's interesting.
So I do find that interesting. Maybe it could just be a vocal minority. Maybe they might not have that much power, but I don't know. I wonder if people are saying that to kind of dissuade others from thinking that. Like maybe a lot of people really were so upset by The Last Jedi, because I personally think that Last Jedi, even though it had some elements about it that were pretty cool, there were things about it that just bugged me enough that like it did leave that sour taste in my mouth.
Yeah.
Mostly the Luke Skywalker stuff, because I
It
mean,
made no sense. Even as a casual fan, it made no sense to me. Some of it.
well, it was a risk that they took, and a lot of people weren't happy with it. Some people were, but whatever. It was a risk, and I think the thing that made it really interesting for me with Solo as part of the discussion is that maybe that Star Wars brand is not as invincible as I once thought it was. Because this kind of leads into the discussion about saturation, because, I mean, ever since I was a kid, and even when you were a kid, I mean, Star Wars, it changed the game in terms of merchandising, and just literally the franchise concept for movies is Star Wars.
Right.
So everyone's trying to emulate that, and even there was the documentary on Netflix, I think the Toys of Us or something.
Oh.
I forget what it's called, but it's pretty cool. It talks about how Star Wars and other franchises kind of like helped boom the action figure industry, toys, stuff like He-Man.
I would like to. I've not heard of that.
You
That
should
sounds awesome.
you should check it out.
Yeah,
It's
I would
a
like that.
really good documentary.
Okay.
It's like the toys that made us or something. But that was pretty interesting. And the first episode was about Star Wars, and that's where it kind of all started.
Okay.
So really, Star Wars, it was everywhere, and like and
Oh yeah, I had the Ewok village. I had so many of the toys when I was a kid.
yes, so many.
I know.
Like, and it was really fascinating to me. But it's gotten to the point where I mean, and George Lucas may have been responsible for this to some extent, but I feel like the brand almost became more than the films themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you would see stuff everywhere, and it got to the point that maybe it's just getting older and my perspective changing, but I wonder if it's worse than it used to be, because I remember when Force Awakens came out with all that anticipation.
Yeah.
I'll never forget it. I saw some picture online, the Star Wars oranges, where it was just an orange, but with like the Death Star attached to it to pretend maybe like that it was.
Really?
And I'm like,
Wow.
that, literally just marketing oranges as Star Wars related just
Yeah.
because they have the tag, pure branding. But my
That's
point,
what it is now.
and is it just like is the brand suffocating us? Because I'll tell you, and just to get a little more personal, because I used to really love Star Wars, and I'll give you a second here, but like I even like the prequels for the most part. I mean, I know they have issues, certainly. If you hate them, I understand, but
Phantom Menace.
I like the Phantom Menace too. I mean, Attack of the Clones is rough, but they're not the same. There are issues with the acting and everything, but I still thought they were Star Wars. I thought they expanded on things, and these new ones do to some extent. The one thing I could say about the prequels is, much like The Last Jedi, I guess, they took risks. They were different movies.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
I still really like Star Wars then, but I remembered like right around the time I entered college and they started coming out with the Clone Wars cartoons, and and they kept trying to keep things going and not give us a break from anything Star Wars with all the expanded stuff.
Right.
That's when I started to get more into Trek, because I'm like, I feel like I can breathe with that.
Yeah.
And with Star Wars, I feel like I never had the chance to sit back and appreciate it. Like, back in the day, you had to wait, 3 years, 10 years to the movie, and then you just had to read books in the meantime.
Right.
And now I just feel like it's just everywhere. So that's my opinion.
I think that's a problem with the way we consume everything now, because it's like if a franchise is a hit,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it just gets bled dry.
Frozen?
Look at I was gonna say Fast and Furious, but because I was trying to think outside of the Disney realm.
Oh, sorry.
But okay, so here's another example outside the Disney realm. Now, I think the Despicable Me movies are fun, right? But I can't stand the Minions.
Minions
I
were
think the
people hate.
Minions are cute in that first movie. They're okay in the second movie. But the problem is, when they got their own movie, the marketing for that, you couldn't
Escape
throw
it.
a rock and not hit a Minions display or an orange with a minion on it.
Exactly.
Bananas probably for them, but like
It's a good example.
And that is something that when we were kids, I don't think it was quite to that extreme. Like, yes, you had the E.T. cereal, and yes, you had Ghostbuster cereal, and you had the toys, but it was like it wasn't to this extreme where it's, and that's a problem because less people are watching TV. So we can't promote the movie as much on TV. So what do? Oh, let's put them on this fruit snacks box. Let's make them sell Coke and the soft drink, not the drug. But to that point, it's like, Minions, I think, is maybe the most prime example.
People hated that a
God,
lot.
they were ever, and it made
Resentment.
and it made me hate the Minions more.
Interesting.
So I do think there's an oversaturation. But you said it, like, it was when they started coming up with, like, the Clone Wars TV show.
That's when it killed it for me.
And then and then to bring back the franchise to the big screen, what was it, maybe 14 years or whatever after the last one of the trilogy.
I guess it
like that. Wasn't it like 2004 or something like that, or 2005?
Well, 2005 was the last one.
Clones,
wow, so like 10.
So it was about 12 years, let's say, or whatever.
12 years, yeah.
Before the Force Awakens came out, and there was that big anticipation. I mean, the Force Awakens was the biggest movie of all time because
the anticipation.
There was all this build-up. But now, since then, what was that? 3 years ago, we've already had 4 Star Wars movies, because you had Rogue One in there. You have Solo, and then you have the
Last
two
Jedi.
from the trilogy.
Yeah,
Last
so
Jedi
we had
and Force Awakens.
4 movies in 3
I think
years.
there was another Clone Wars animated movie too that may have hit theaters.
Well, then Clone Wars wrapped up recently, but then they immediately started the Star Wars Rebels.
Right.
Yeah,
so Rebels. It's like, and so there's no breathing room.
And that's canon. You have to watch that now.
A lot of it's canon.
Like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., yes. So if you want to keep up with all of it, you have to immerse yourself. And it's like, no, I really, like you said, when we were kids, it was like, you waited a few years before the sequel to a movie would come out.
Mm-hmm.
And not that I'm saying Incredibles 2, that's too far.
That's a bit much.
That's a long reach. But I think, 4 or 5 years, Ghostbusters 2. You had a 5-year gap there. Back to the Future 1 and 2, 4 or 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a lot less, but that's the problem now. It's like when a studio hits on something, oh my God,
pump it out,
bleed it, and
sucks.
I mean, listen, this movie might be good, this Toy Story 4, but I'm so angry that they're making it.
I know.
It just, the trilogy was perfect.
Let it be.
Wrap it up. Let it be.
But the money.
Like,
and you're gonna have to see it. You're gonna have to support it.
Of course, I listen. I support Pixar, but I personally think Toy Story 4 shouldn't exist. No matter if it's amazing or not, the story wrapped up perfectly.
It did.
And right now, that if The Godfather came out in 2010 instead of the 70s, we'd be up to the 6th Godfather. You know that. Because it was a big fat hit.
I've heard there's talks of a remake for that, by the
Stop.
I'm serious.
I can't. That.
Oh, you know what?
Before
we move, I don't know if we're done yet, but just as a brief sidebar here, speaking of remakes, another part of the issue, my girlfriend has actually brought up the question, when will they remake the original Star Wars movies? When will they take that bold step?
I think there are. Well, first of all, they already did with that movie, The Force Awakens. But I think there is a handful of movies that will never be remade.
I don't know about
one way or another, and here's why I say that.
Okay, I want to hear.
I say that because The Wizard of Oz was made 80 years ago.
Dan, it's gonna happen.
And they still have yet to remake it.
You might not live to see it, but they're gonna remake it. They've played around with it a little with sequels and reimaginings, prequels.
But they've never remade it straight up. Godfather really just seems like one of those movies. Gone with the Wind seems like one of them. There's another one that's been around for 80 years and they've never remade it. So I think there are certain things that are not remakeable.
Okay.
You're right, though. In 100 years from now, we'll all be dead.
Maybe they'll do a Star Wars movie.
Remake Back to the Future, whatever. But I don't know. It's a valid question, but I feel like a world like Star Wars is so expansive. You don't need to remake it because there's so many different aspects of it. Do we need to explore it every 5 months? I don't think so.
I don't know about that.
But yeah.
But yeah, I think that the saturation, I think it's definitely felt. And I think that might have impacted it. I think people might be getting a little tired of it.
I also don't think that Alden Ehrenreich is that charismatic a person. We've seen him in Hail Caesar. I saw him in that stupid Warren Beatty movie, Rules Don't Apply. He may have done other things, but nothing.
Not much.
I mean, I think Hail Caesar was his big kind of breakout. I just don't think he's that dynamic. So for him to play Han Solo, now, what's his name? Donald Glover is dynamic.
Yeah.
As Lando, but the movie ain't called Lando.
No.
You need Han Solo is one of the most iconic film characters of all time.
And a lot of people were like, that is deeply ingrained in Harrison Ford, and that charisma of Harrison Ford playing that character, very difficult.
And I admit, he looks kind of like a young Harrison Ford. I'll give him that. But I just don't think he's that charismatic.
He was okay.
So
I didn't mind him. Apparently, he had to get acting coaching or something, but
makes sense.
He's not that experienced, but But hey, I thought he was okay. I thought the movie was fun. You could see it sometime, but
I'll see it.
But that's pretty much what I've been telling everybody. It's like, it's not a bad movie. Go see it, but there's no need to rush out and see it. And I think everyone's kind of feels the same way.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'll catch that on Redbox or something.
Right.
And yeah, I mean, I'm personally more excited for Incredibles 2 or Jurassic, and mostly that's just because even with the last Jurassic Park movie, there's not as much constant buzz about the franchises.
Right. I mean, even between Jurassic Park movies now has been at least 2 years, maybe 3.
Yeah, and then of course they're having, and it's not like they advertise Star Wars constantly.
Right.
Yeah. As compared to anyway. I think there's a little too much Star Wars these days.
I agree.
I think there could be a break, but it's going to lead into another rant.
Okay.
Now, we were looking for articles. That's kind of what this partially is.
Yeah, that's all right.
But this one, Star Wars annoys me, but at least Star Wars generally is quality. Even Last Jedi, well-made movie.
Okay.
I had personal issues with it. But what I really love that has not been doing so well?
Tell me.
There's these characters that aren't with Marvel. There's you might have heard of them, Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman. They've had a lot of issues getting off the ground, even though they've been around a lot longer. And Warner Brothers is doing its thing. They're trying to catch up, but their fans keep coming out, but they keep getting hurt.
They do.
And I have had enough.
Wow.
There's Suicide Squad 2. I
just announced that's moving even more forward. They picked up a couple new writers for it.
Because the last one, very mixed, which we can talk a little bit about. Yeah. But basically, long and short of it, man, my feelings about it. I'm a big DC fan. I love the comics, love the cartoons, love those characters. They have not been done enough justice on screen. Literally, man. And I've said this over and over again with my friends, but I think it really sells it. Justice League of America, that group should be the most epic thing. It should blow Avengers out of the water. Avengers was modeled after them, and their model, the most iconic, mythical heroes of our time. Their movie was mediocre, and it looked like garbage.
It was okay.
Captain America: Civil War had a smaller budget, and it looked better than that. And basically,
a lot of issues with the DCU.
A lot of issues, but there's just been a lot of problems, and I mean, I guess just kind of leading into the question, I don't have, after Justice League, I was like, I don't really have much faith, until they reboot and start from scratch and just take their time, just do what Marvel did and try to have more fun with it. I really don't know how much I'm really excited to go even watch this. And so my question to you is, because you had thoughts about Suicide Squad. Do you think there's, and various things,
yes,
do you think there is a way, as someone who's not a huge comic book fan, just from the movie's perspective, how do you think they could save it, turn it around?
Well, okay, so here is the problem.
One?
Let's say the main problem.
Okay.
And actually, I mean, to be honest, you've kind of summed up all 2 or 3 of their main problems in your rant. Number one is that they are they're trying to play this tit for tat game with the Avengers and the Marvel universe, where we really gotta rush this stuff out, and they're not taking their time to properly assess is this a good movie. Now look, I like Suicide Squad more than most.
True.
I saw it twice in theaters, twice more on DVD. I didn't hate it. It had its problems. I think Will Smith stole the show. Let's be real.
He was pretty good.
He was pretty good. But I think their general problem is that, like, they're just not. It's like Marvel is like the big brother, even though they came later to the party, but movie-wise they didn't.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, with the new stuff, obviously,
Yeah.
Superman, was way back.
I got you. The franchise.
The franchise. And they're like looking up to Big Brother and saying like, oh, I want to do what you do. I want to,
Little Jimmy.
Yeah, like, oh, I want to be that. And it's like the problem is they don't know how to be that
Because you're not grown up yet.
because they're not grown up yet, and all their movies, they're so dark, and I mean both in tone and in
lighting and
lighting.
editing
they
and
don't look fun. Like, Batman was always a dark franchise, and it got more so with the animated series, and it worked for it.
yeah.
Batman works on that level, but they're
Flash?
Suicide Squad is supposed to be like this fun,
Zany.
right, wacky, and they had some of that, but Guardians of the Galaxy or the Avengers, it just was not.
No.
And it didn't look like it either. Like,
Well,
it
was
was that. But I just think that Warner's is sort of, they're like lost at sea with it, because it's like they don't know why their movies are so bad. And I don't know why. Like, are they not listening to feedback? Are they, and I know I have friends that love these movies and like love them. And the critics are, are all crazy, and they're just so hard on them because they're DC. And to be honest, they're just not that great.
I think,
except for Wonder Woman.
I think that a lot
Amazing.
of hardcore DC fans are trying to accept what they have and say it's great, but like, I think if you just
That's unacceptable to me.
I mean, it is, but I think that it's true. I've noticed even with the Rotten Tomatoes, there is a lot of discrepancy there. There's a lot of headbutting,
Yeah.
conflict, because there's a lot of hardcore fans that are just like thinking that people are being too hard on them because trying to compare it with Marvel.
They want to.
They want to support
gripe
their
about
movies.
something, and
They think they're just being treated unfairly. But like, I think just the average person watched like all the Marvel movies and all the DC movies, they would see that there is some issues with quality, and maybe even more so just with identity, because the Marvel movies have got their formula down, and for the most part they're fun, but they really know how to tackle that serious subject matter without going too dark, which is pretty cool. Some people say that's a problem, but they found their identity, what they want to do. DC, like with Suicide Squad, half the movie was fun and zany, the other half was dark and grim.
Right. And it didn't mesh.
Sometimes, literally, sometimes scene for scene would be like this dramatic whiplash of tone, and
it's mesh.
DC is like trying to find that balance. They say, okay, people like Batman, he's dark, but all the other characters aren't really like that.
Right. So figure out why, figure out what makes each character work. Like the Flash, like you said.
Easy.
And I guess I don't really watch much of the shows, but I guess their TV components are doing great. Like, people seem to love the Flash.
Yeah.
Supergirl's apparently hit a big stride, and
which is funny because I think that they're a bit cornier, but then again, harkening back to the classic, tone of the old comics, DC's always been a little bit campier.
Batman show.
Yeah, like
the Burt
so.
Ward and Adam West show.
I think going with that vein, I don't think they're the same level of quality as the Netflix shows, which are a bit darker and more serious.
But they're allowed to be because they're not on a network.
Yeah, but the thing is, those shows for DC, at least they're embracing their comic book roots and having more fun.
Yeah.
So the movies, it seems like there's a lot of shift in focus.
Okay, so here's but what Marvel figured out, and really I shouldn't even say figure out, I should say set the template for, is the balance that you just mentioned. Because, okay, I think we could all admit that Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 is probably a second-tier Marvel movie. It is great. I gave it an A-, but there's a lot of A's in the Marvel canon. So I think Guardians Volume 2 is probably like, more towards the bottom half of the top.
You're probably right, but it's still fantastic.
Okay, and here's what I'm saying. That scene at the end to the Cat Stevens
fireworks,
father and son song, which leads into
the funeral.
Funeral.
So
that
sad.
scene in one of the wackiest and most fun of all the Marvel movies, hits the emotional notes better than any scene in any DCEU movie that I have seen.
I agree, man.
And that's in one of their most fun movies. So how do they strike that balance? They just know how to do it.
I think you know what I think it is? I think they focus a lot on the superheroes themselves, the characters and the humanity.
The characterizations, yeah, and the humanity, and so that way, because people are emotional, but they're also silly. They don't always have to be super dark like Batman, and they also don't.
I'm Batman. I'm always like this.
Wacky, off the rails like Harley Quinn or whatever. You can have both. You can have a tender scene with a wacky character, and Marvel makes it work because we care about these characters so much.
And it's gonna hurt my feelings a little bit to say this, but I think it's actually an issue that kind of comes up in discussing the comparison between DC and Marvel. Is that I think DC, because of their reputation and being the oldest heroes, a lot of times their characters are defined by their powers, and they might seem easier to become caricatures. Mm-hmm. Marvel, because of being steeped with Stan Lee and the civil rights movement and all that, it's always been more human. It's always been a little more real.
Makes sense.
Always has been.
That actually makes a lot of sense.
So, maybe that's one reason why people can gravitate a bit more to them now.
Yeah.
Or maybe always. But then again, DC was... That's the thing. I think Marvel has always been a little more grounded, but DC's always been a little more escapist. Mm-hmm. And I think you had a little bit of both. Either way, I'm not saying that DC couldn't be serious or vice versa.
Right.
But, yeah, it's like the movies are giving into the worst stereotypes about DC. Like, they're struggling to find their... Like, the Flash character in Justice League or Aquaman, they had zany one-liners. They were fun. They might have been fun, but, like, beyond their wacky traits and their powers, we don't know who they are as people.
Well, and that was one of my big problems with Justice League. And I didn't hate the movie. I think I gave it like a B-. It's okay.
Yeah, it was all right.
But the problem is, because they were trying to rush it out, half of the characters didn't have their own movies or backstories. So it's like, you don't
have any investment.
I don't know anything about half the characters. So, like, okay, cool. Like, I didn't care about them. Why should I?
True.
And not all of, obviously, the Avengers have their own movies. Hawkeye didn't get his own movie, but they gave us enough of Hawkeye. But he's such an ancillary character anyway, barely matters.
You want to see the Hawkeye movie?
I don't. I love Jeremy Renner.
What about the Super Tag movie?
I'd rather see the Tag movie. that is more entertaining to me, but I don't know. I think that kind of sums up the difference between the two groups, is that father and son Cat Stevens scene at the end of Guardians 2 is more emotionally impactful than anything that DC has offered us, and it's in one of the silliest Marvel movies there is.
That's pretty bad for DC.
Mic drop. Like,
that's a good way to end it there.
Yeah.
Wow, they gotta take some notes and look at everything, not just like the fact that they were successful.
Right.
Man, like, you can do better, guys. I know you can. But
yeah,
I guess I'll see the next Suicide Squad, maybe.
Oh, I'll see it.
I know. Well, if you see it, I've got to see it because I've comic book movies. Anyway, all right. Moving on to the next topic. This one was more for you. It was interesting.
Yeah.
With the Ocean's 11. Was it? What was the first one?
The first one was 11.
Oh yeah,
12 and 13.
12, 13. So the Ocean's 11 movies. They're getting to come back, which I'm actually more excited for because I don't care at all about the Ocean's movies.
Right.
For some reason, I never was into them. But Ocean's 8. All female ensemble cast. I'm much more excited about.
Okay.
Just 'cause I don't know why, because I guess that in itself is different to me. Okay, but you brought it up as okay. So take Ocean's 8 versus Ghostbusters. Why is there less hate about this? Something like this.
There was so much vitriol against the Ghostbusters female reboot, and why is the Ocean's female reboot not getting this same sort of anger? And I'm not exactly sure why. I have some theories.
I've got one.
Okay, what's your theory?
Well, I think it says something kind of negative about fandom and the Ghostbusters fans, I guess, but people don't care as much about Oceans. Like, it's not as big as Ghostbusters. Not quite as much of like a cult classic defining pop culture.
Following.
But even so, I think back about Ghostbusters, and I'm like, literally the fact that that I saw that they were women, an all-female cast, did not bother me at all. But
Mm-hmm.
but that was like
Me neither.
a lot of, I guess,
That was
misogynistic
most of the
guys.
hate, yeah.
The hate came. Oh, it's just this is like you can't. It's a betrayal because Ghostbusters is like a guy thing with. I was like that. That was not the issue with it. But what are your theories?
Well, that is one of them. That I think people are more attached to Ghostbusters as a franchise.
True.
You know, obviously the first one is legendary. The Ocean's movies I think are fun, but maybe not. I don't know, as revered certainly as Ghostbusters. The other theory is the Ocean's movies itself was a remake
True.
because the original, Frank Sinatra Rat Pack Ocean's movie from, I think there was only one,
60s or
from the
70s,
I
yeah.
think. So maybe that was something. But I think maybe because the cast of Oceans is a little more older skewing, because you do have like Rihanna's in it and Aquafina is in it, whatever she is, rapper I guess or something. But you've got Sandra Bullock, you've got Kate Blanchett, you've got Anne Hathaway. So this movie I think is obviously made for an older audience than the Kristen Wiig, Melissa McCarthy, Leslie Jones version of Ghostbusters. It's more of like an SNL. There's
Ensemble
three
movie.
SNL cast members, and then Melissa McCarthy, who's hosted 5 times. So it's like
It's an SNL movie,
it's almost
kinda.
an SNL movie.
Yeah.
Whereas I think maybe Oceans has more of a pedigree.
Broader.
I think maybe that's because listen, the people that I think the Ocean's 8 franchise is going for are not your internet trolls.
True.
Whereas I think Ghostbusters is more of like a younger demo. At least that's what they were going for with the casting. So I'm thinking maybe that's part of it.
That sounds possible.
But what I didn't get about the whole Ghostbusters thing is just the hate before even seeing a frame of it. And I agree the first trailer did not make it look that good. But, Ghostbusters on its own was a decent movie. I haven't seen the new Oceans movie, and I, like many, don't have too much of an attachment with it. But I don't know. I mean, I think that's probably the reason. Like, I think if Ocean's 8 was made with only younger people, because like Mindy Kaling's in it, like if it was made only with those types of people, like the younger demo, I think more people would be rallying against it.
Well, it's also keeping in theme with the other Oceans movies of having a pretty established light cast. I mean, Bullock, Blanchett, people generally like them. They've got a good reputation. I feel like if you cast younger, less experienced actors to cash in again, I can guarantee would have gotten more hate.
Yeah.
Because I mean, usually that signs to less quality, but
it takes place in the same universe with the same people. Like Clooney is in it, I think, for the cameo. And some of the other people, maybe Elliot Gould, I forget, are actually in it. Ghostbusters, they were in it, but they weren't playing Venkman or whoever. They were playing, Dan Aykroyd, the cab driver, which I thought was an odd way to go. But
interesting.
Nobody knew that until they saw the movie.
That was a surprise.
Like, So it's like they certainly didn't get the hate for that.
No, it's kind of interesting because it kind of goes back to the oversaturation and, obviously capitalizing on remakes and stuff. I think it's another example of, I guess, for a lot of people, Ghostbusters was a movie that was so steeped in, I guess, that unique zeitgeist of the 80s. Like, it was such a weird concept that became a thing.
Yeah.
Never touch it again.
That is true.
So,
to bring it back to something we talked about. That's a possibility.
But I know it didn't bother me.
But the other thing I think it leads into is that Ghostbusters is more of a comedy, and I think Ocean's 8 is fun, but I don't think anyone would mistake Anne Hathaway for being a comedian.
No.
And Amy Schumer is somebody that I think also gets a lot of negativity and vitriol from a lot of different people.
It's true. She gets a lot of hate.
She gets a lot of hate, and there is a huge segment of the population, I don't want to say huge segment, but there is a segment of the population that simply doesn't find women funny. And I've heard this time and time again about different comedians, and even old school male comedians will say that. Was it Milton Berle? One of it was Jerry Lewis.
Jerry
Lewis famously said women aren't funny, they can't be funny. And I think there are people that feel that way. And I think Ghostbusters, especially with the people they cast, all SNL vets, I think was going for this more, because Ghostbusters is a funny movie, but there was a lot more to it than that. It wasn't just
Well, it's hard to
let's be
categorize.
funny. It is hard to categorize because it's a little bit scary, maybe, but it's also funny, and
Mystery,
we like the characters,
supernatural.
a bit of mystery. Yeah, I think with the casting of Ocean's 8, look, Bullock is not doing stand-up routines.
No.
Mindy Kaling is the closest one I would say in the cast to being a comedian.
Okay. So you think it might
I
be
think that's part of it too, because
aligned with the comedic aspect
I
of
think,
women's
like
perceptions.
a lot of people, because think about it, Bridesmaids, I think, is the top-grossing, female-led ensemble, like comedy.
But even that was
maybe
like,
you count My Big Fat Greek Wedding,
dude,
too.
I thought that I thought Bridesmaids was kind of a dark comedy.
There are some dark aspects to it.
It was a lot more dramatic at points than I thought it was going to be. Like, it wasn't a straight up slapstick thing.
Right. No, it wasn't.
Interesting.
But there you go. So and certainly the diminishing returns from the Melissa McCarthy movies. After Bridesmaids hit, she had a couple of real big movies, and now her latest movie barely made a dent. And so I think there is some sort of thing with that too. And these Ocean's 8 movies are not necessarily going for like broad comedy. Kate Blanchett,
she's pretty dry.
Right, she's pretty dry.
With
You don't go
that
to a
stuff.
Blanchett movie for the jokes.
That would be funny to see. Yeah.
So I think that may be part of it too. That separates the two.
That is interesting. Kind of a resistance to women doing comedic things, and that might have led into the criticism about Ghostbusters being generally considered to be, I guess, a comedic film.
Yeah.
People tend to be... do you think people are harder on comedic remakes than dramatic ones?
Oh, yeah. I think so.
I can't even think of too many.
I think comedic ones, the originals, I think, are more beloved. And I think it leads, not to get political on your channel, but I think it goes out beyond movies. Like the whole White House correspondent thing with Michelle Wolf. I don't know if you heard of that, but she's like a Daily Show correspondent, and she did this year's White House Correspondents' Dinner or whatever, and she got slammed for all these jokes she told. But it's like other Seth Meyers has done that, Louis Black has done it, and it was never that much blowback about it because it's more of like a roast kind of dinner anyway. But yet. This girl from the Daily Show did it, and it's like she got all this hate about it, and I think it's weird. So I think that leads into this kind of stuff.
That just kind of comes back to, I think, maybe a lot of ingrained sexism that's still there.
I think so.
Like, even that thing you're saying, that if that's still like an idea in people's minds, women can't be funny, there's, like in a lot of other areas, it's people are harder on them because they have to live up to that. And it's funny, people will criticize them for making certain jokes that might be demeaning when stand-up comics are offensive about stuff all the time. Right. But if a woman does, why she should be doing that?
Oh my gosh, yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
But no, to think that women can't be funny, I've seen so many funny. Has anybody watched a movie with that? That's.
Well, speaking of Bullock, how about The Heat? Bullock and McCarthy in The Heat.
The great example.
What a great movie.
Loved that movie.
Both funny.
Really funny women that people liked. I mean, maybe not as big as maybe a buddy cop movie males would do.
As big as Lethal Weapon or whatever.
But still, it's proof that it can be done. So, but
I think maybe that's the difference. Is the Ocean's 8 cast skews a little older. Maybe isn't known for their comedy chops, so they're not really expected to be that funny. It's more of like a fun heist kind of movie. Like, you have fun watching it, but you're not necessarily like belly laughing about it.
That's interesting.
Because the Ocean's movies, I mean, Ocean's 11.
There's jokes.
It was fun. They had jokes, but it was like, I wouldn't necessarily consider it a comedy.
No, it's a fun
not
like heist,
Hangover or something.
Exactly.
But so I don't know. I just wanted to kind of
no,
that up.
no.
I don't know.
That's
because it opened this weekend. And it did okay. It made $40 million, I think. So.
No, I wanted to see that.
Yeah,
I was more excited to see that than I probably was Solo. Which
I'm more excited to see that than Solo for sure.
My buddy Troll even mentioned that, which surprised me. It's bad because he obviously big geek, lover Star Wars, and
wow, he even said he was the Ocean's 8
because That's what I'm saying. Hardcore fans are
Yeah.
probably a bit tired of this.
I'm looking more forward to Sicario 2 than I am Solo.
Talk about a movie that I never thought needed a sequel. Not that I didn't like it, but talk about a bleak, dark.
But I'm gonna do a sequel.
It looks like it's more just like, okay, he's straight up not being secret about it. He's just killing all the drug dealers.
But what if you put Rihanna in that?
Oh man,
Rihanna and Melissa
she's
McCarthy
no Emily as a comedy.
Dude, yeah,
No.
I'd see it.
Oh my god.
Anyway.
Well, I think that's a good place to wrap it up, man. Any final thoughts or anything you want to leave me with?
We've hit everything.
Okay.
I thank you for the plug on my channel as well.
Yes, and plug again, please check out Dan Reviews It for all kinds of TV and movie stuff. He's got to do some collection videos. I'll be popping up over there to talk about like Disney or Marvel or
something.
Pixar or something.
Now, I guess. Disney and Marvel.
Princess Leia is a Disney princess, which I guess is fine.
Yeah,
but it's whatever. But yeah, guys, hey, thanks for dropping by. Please feel free to like, subscribe, leave some comments for future ideas, and I'm gonna try to get some videos edited for you guys when I can. But we'll find out.
Yeah, take care.
See you guys.